0.5% higher on the Nifty. It's held above the 10,650 mark.
The market is up and about 75 points higher. Gains which the market began with are there still on the board, 70 points.
Yeah, that 70 has come down to 55. So just the last 5 or 6 minutes, there's been some profit taking from the highest point of the day. So 138 points higher on the Nifty, 400 points higher on the Sensex, 282 points higher on the Bank Nifty, and about 1% higher on the mid-cap index.
Market snaps its 8-day losing streak, rises sharply on global optimism and short covering of oversold positions. Nifty reclaims 10,700, Sensex gains over 400 points.
PSU banks rise thanks to short covering in hopes of capital infusion. Soon after markets closed, the announcement came. Government has announced a 48,000 crore rupee recapitalisation plan for 12 banks. This is what CNBC TV 18 had reported.
Nifty Metal outperforms benchmark indices to end 3% in the green. Hindalco, Vedanta and Tata Steel top the charts, gaining about 4% each.
The Supreme Court holds Anil Ambani guilty of contempt in the Ericsson case, orders Reliance Communication to pay 450 crore rupees to Ericsson. It's to be paid within 4 weeks, failing which Anil Ambani may face arrest. ADAG stocks suffer in trade.
JSW rules out a joint bid to acquire SR Steel along with Vedanta. But Surgeon General says JSW is ready to buy 26% stake in SR Steel if the Ruyas manage to pull the company out of insolvency proceedings. Separately, sources say ArcelorMittal inspected the SR plant and is in talks with the group to buy their power and port assets. Well, those were the top 5 headlines from Dalal Street on a day when the bulls had it, the bulls had it, the bulls had it. Welcome to Markets Today, Talk Back, the show where we tell you everything that happened in those 6 hours of trading in 5 headlines. I'm Lata Venkatesh, with me my colleague Prashant Nair. Hi, Prashant.
Lata, hi. After 8 or 9 days of pretty poor trading and bulls being on the back foot, actually getting pretty hammered regularly, finally we got that bounce which many were hoping for, expecting. It kind of built on, and a lot of the gains actually happened, the acceleration in gains happened in the last 30-40 minutes of trade. The next 30 minutes, we will rewind the clock back all the way to 9 in the morning. We'll tell you what mattered, the stories, and we'll take your questions. Ashwini Gujral on the charts will be with us to take your questions, and we'll have Gaurang Shah on the fundamentals. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being here with us today. Let's then start and take 2 minutes to look at what really happened and the factors which influenced trade. Lata.
It quite clearly appears to be a very sharp short covering rally. The bears had sold and perhaps the bulls followed in tow for 8 consecutive days. It was a deeply oversold market, and it was only natural that at the first sign of any covering, it would be a very scared bear that will run for cover, and that's exactly what happened. The bulls got some help as well from the global markets, which have been in a risk-on mode. That helped the metal stocks in particular, where you saw a decent amount of buying, Tata Steel, Vedanta, Hindalco, JSW, JSPL, all of them. And more importantly, you had the PSU banks in the reckoning. They already had a 1.3% rally yesterday. The PSU banks had a further rally today on expectations that they're going to get capital. And that indeed was realized after market hours, with Allahabad and Corporation looking all set to come out of the prompt corrective action. The capital levels which were breached have now been covered. What other stocks other than these?
Mid-caps, small caps did very well, Lata. So 1.33% gains there. The Bank Nifty was strong, and it'll come up on your screen. So that's essentially top down. Sectorally, metals, energy and IT did the best. So on your screen again. In terms of large cap stocks, Tata Steel, Vedanta, Hindalco, a lot of the metals, as I said, one of the top performing in the sectors. GAIL was higher, India Bulls Housing and Adani Ports was up as well. In the broader market, there were winners like JSPL, Shriram Transport was up quite a bit, CG Power, KPIT was up, Minda Industries posted very strong 12-13% gains. Adani Power, Info Edge is back. It had a fabulous start to this year, and then it went sideways, but it's back at 1710. I think it's at a new high. VIP Industries, Edelweiss, Tejas Networks, which actually had collapsed, is starting to do better now. 12% yesterday, 20% today. In the broader space, so the ADAG stocks all came off. I mean, they were actually by close off the lows, but still, Reliance Capital, for example, down 4.25%. Jubilant Food was down. Page Industries was down 5%. Page now from its highs is down almost 45% now. Imami, Endurance, Shankara were some of the other large volume losers. Lata.
Okay. Well, Shankara has been rising for the past 3 or 4 days. So there the effect was opposite, I guess, to take off some long positions. But anyway, we are more worried about where the index is headed after having come back from the 10,640 levels almost by 100 points. Ashwini, that question to you first. The bounce back today, what happens hereafter?
See, in my view, the market is sideways between 10,600 and 11,000. Like we went up 550 points from the lows and then came down 550 points from the highs. It's possible that a similar move has again started. And because we fell 8, 9, 10 days in a row, hence, there should be substantial number of shorts. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them are still to be covered and we almost end up back towards 11,000 zone. So that way, I would think the market is still sideways and open to higher levels. And higher levels is basically what, 400-500 points.
Fair enough. Ashwini, so, I mean, if you get a flat open, slightly lower, go long, you'd say?
I would think so, because today's turnaround has sustained. There is strong, participation from mid caps. Even larger stocks did well, and it wasn't the kind of narrow market that we are used to. So chances are that around 10,680, 700, you should find buying and then move on from there.
Okay. Ashwini, thanks very much for that. So that kind of sort of sets us up for the next story, and this is the second headline. PSU banks rose in trade thanks to a short covering rally. Of course, during the course of trade, there were hopes of capital infusion, and soon after markets closed, the government announced a 48,000 crore rupee recapitalisation plan for 12 banks, just as we had reported earlier in the day. I mean, so this should show up in prices tomorrow as well, Lata. What are the details?
Well, the important number are the 2 banks that are very close to coming out of PCA, and that's Allahabad Bank and Corporation Bank. They've got a substantial amount of money, almost 7,000 crores for Allahabad Bank, and Corporation Bank getting about 9,086 crore. Corporation Bank has about 10% in gross NPAs, and Allahabad has less than that. They were in PCA because their capital was not enough, and of course, their net NPA also has to come down to 6. At 10%, it is still high. But with this kind of capital, they would be able to write off more of the bad assets, so the net NPA would automatically come down. Banks, Bank of India and Bank of Maharashtra have already exited, but they've been obviously given growth capital. Then 4 other banks which are not at all in the prompt corrective action list, PNB, Union, Andhra and Syndicate Bank also have been given. PNB about 6,000 crore, Union about 4,000, Andhra about 3,200 and Syndicate about 1,600. This is so that they don't go down to PCA levels, to keep their net NPA and their capital levels higher. And Central Bank, which really is the most difficult case, that Central Bank, United Bank, UCO Bank and IOB, which are the most difficult cases, they've been given about 2,500 crore. There is not much hope that any of these are going to exit the PCA anytime soon. There, the NPA level is between 15 and 20%. It's going to take a distance to bring it down below 6%.
Okay, we got a question coming in on State Bank of India. Subhash Kulkarni has written in with that question. He's got 1,000 shares of SBI. Its cost is 265 rupees a share. He's bought the share fairly recently, about a week back. He's a short-term investor, wants to know whether he should hold or sell. Gaurang, SBI, what would you say?
So, Prashant, thanks and good evening to all of you all. I guess it's, the recovery period has started, but that recovery to reflect on the PSU bank's numbers, well, we've seen one part of it, better part is yet to be seen. And if you are in for a long haul, my advice would be to stay invested in State Bank of India. 265 levels fairly attractive, if I may say so, because your downside is extremely protected from those levels. Maybe higher levels, 325, 345 could not be ruled out. But again, I'm talking about long-term targets, Prashant.
All right, I take your point. This is not a short-term call. But Ashwini, what is the short-term call on SBI?
See, SBI basically, it's in a range of 260 to about 290, 295. And once it gets there, short-term profits can be taken. But this is not the kind of time where you want to, look for big targets, because since the Nifty is range bound, large stocks are likely to be range bound. So my sense is 260 to 295 should hold up in this phase of the market.
Okay, that is State Bank of India for you. We move on to the third story now. Metals all were higher in trade. Nifty Metal Index outperformed benchmark indices. It was up 3% by close. So steel, non-steel stocks, Hindalco, Vedanta, Tata Steel, all were looking up, and the names I mentioned were up anything between 2 and 4% on your screen. We got a question coming in from Pathik Shah, and he's written in with a question on Vedanta. He's been holding 400 shares of Vedanta. His cost is 185 rupees each. He's a long-term investor and wants to know what to do with Vedanta, hold or sell. Ashwini?
See, from short-term point of view, if you can average around this 155 zone, then the odds of becoming profitable at 185, 190 are fairly simple. In case it's a long-term view, this stock used to be at 355. So that way, this is a good price to buy it. But if he wants to make money quickly, then you possibly need to average down, and because this US-China issues is probably on the verge of getting sorted out, that way it'll be easier to make money if you can average it down once.
Okay. Your thoughts on Vedanta or any of the metal, any of the steel stocks, I will say, not metal, any of the steel stocks, Gaurang?
So, Lata, we remain positive on almost half a dozen companies, if you will. Tata Steel, starting with Hindalco, Tata Steel, JSW Steel, JSPL, Vedanta, Steel Authority of India, and Nalco. In Vedanta, Lata, I would say that, we are more optimistic from the crude oil business point of view, wherein you had Cane India merging with Vedanta. And of course, there were some issues on the corporate front. We have issues with Tamil Nadu facility. We have issues with stake of Cane India being sold off to an interested party, etc. But yeah, I mean, if you are in for the long haul, I think the best part for the metal sector would be the resolution of trade war between US and China. And of course, on domestic front too, Lata, we remain extremely positive about the consumption theme.
Okay. But there's someone else who is also positive about the consumption theme, and that is the management of Ashok Leyland, whom we spoke to. Not quite consumption, but they expect trucks or heavy vehicles, commercial vehicles, to sell at least 20% in FY20. So a 20% growth. We also have for you some opinion we got from Mahesh Patil, the fund manager from Aditya Birla Sun Life, on what he makes of the markets going forward. How long before there is a genuine upturn? Listening to these two valuable opinions, we are taking a break and we're back.
I think I should not see a big correction from here unless we see global markets again kind of giving off from these levels. Otherwise, I think to a large extent the concerns about elections and this thing are getting priced in, I mean, at this point in time. Earnings also in this quarter have been kind of mixed bag. We've seen further downgrade to earnings for this this fiscal year. There is a possibility that markets could go down lower from here because if at all, okay, we see some kind of, again, oil is still at a pretty reasonable level. We're not seeing, but it's kind of moving up. But if at all it starts to move above $70 or so, I think there'll be some pressure because fiscal side, there are challenges which are there.
FY 19-20 is the pre-buy year. We are expecting about 20% growth. We are readying ourselves for that. We are getting our production planning ready for it, and it could even be a little higher, especially in Q3 and Q4 of FY 19-20. Let me tell you that our team is putting together plans which are which is very clear that we would want to grow our market share methodically over the next 5 years. And there are also other plans as well. While we will be, increasing our market share, we have also got a cost plan where we would want to reduce our middle line, improve our EBITDA by driving in operational efficiency, and most importantly, we would be introducing BS6 through our modular vehicle program, or what we call internally as modular business program, where I expect at least a 200 basis point reduction on material cost.
Well, we move on to the fourth story of the day, and this is ADAG in focus. The ADAG group. Stocks of the group fell after the Supreme Court held chairman of the group, Anil Ambani, guilty of contempt in the Ericsson case. The Supreme Court ordered Reliance Communications to pay 450 crore rupees to Ericsson. And then, of course, the details. Ashmit is standing by. He was in the court when the order was being read out. And Ashmit, fill us in with details.
Indeed, a big setback coming in for Anil Ambani. The apex court not mincing words, making it abundantly clear that Anil Ambani is in fact guilty of contempt of court, contempt of the highest court of the country. And as a response to that, the apex court has said that RCom does need to cough up that amount of 450 crore rupees, or Anil Ambani will be facing a jail term. Now, let's discuss what led to this. In the year 2018, there was a payment dispute between the two sides, a payment dispute over 1,600 crore rupees. That amount was settled. That payment dispute was settled with RCom agreeing to pay an amount of 550 crore rupees. And towards that extent, they had given an undertaking before first the NCLAT and then before the apex court. However, that payment never happened, which is the reason why Ericsson had moved this contempt application. They had gone on to make arguments such as that extraordinary citizens have taken the court for a ride, that they've been giving misleading information. RCom, of course, had sought to defend itself by arguing that, number one, there is no question of a personal liability of Anil Ambani, and number two, and perhaps more importantly, this payment was always, as per their words, as per RCom's words, contingent on the RCom-RGO deal, which did not happen, and hence the question of payment does not arise. Now, the apex court was very sharp in its observations, said that the conduct of the parties appeared to be very cavalier in nature, that from the very outset it seemed that they had no intention of coming through on that payment, that they've been misleading the court, and that with these sharp observations, the apex court clearly held that yes, there is a clear case of contempt. Anil Ambani is guilty of contempt, but the court did not stop there. It has directed now RCom to make that payment of 450 crore rupees within 4 weeks, and with that, the apex court has slipped in the warning that if that payment does not happen within 4 weeks, Anil Ambani will be looking at a jail term of 3 months. Not just that, the apex court also slipped in some disciplinary action. It has slapped an additional fine of 1 crore rupees each on each of the 3 directors, including Anil Ambani. So that's additional action that the apex court has taken. But clearly, the big takeaway here essentially is that Anil Ambani is guilty of contempt as per the apex court. He's convicted. And number two, that payment of 450 crore rupees needs to be made by RCom, failing which Anil Ambani will head straight to jail.
Okay, there's a question from Ishwar Sharma on Reliance Infra. He has 118 shares of the company, purchased at 299 rupees a share. Holding the stock for 3 months now, wants to know what to do. Gaurang, can you help him?
Well, Lata, we have sell coverage on 2 stocks of ADAG Group. One was Reliance Power, second one was Reliance Communication. We don't cover any stocks in the ADAG Group as far as the positive view is concerned. And, the problem with this group is bad news on one company and everything goes down associated with the ADAG Group. I think if you want to look at infrastructure and Sadbhav Engineering, PNC Infra, and a much well-diversified company like an L&T, these are more credible names.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much for joining us, Gaurang and Ashwini. The fifth and the last headline for the day is relevant to stock markets but not immediately moving shares. The big corporate story. Sajjan Jindal's JSW has ruled out any joint bid with Vedanta to acquire Essar Steel. This came a day after Vedanta issued a similar denial. However, in a statement to CNBC TV 18, Sajjan Jindal said JSW is ready to buy up to 26% stake in Essar Steel if the Ruyas manage to pull the company out of insolvency proceedings. Ritu Singh for more.
A fresh twist in the case of Essar Steel's insolvency case, where, do remember, it is no secret that Jindals have always been very keen to acquire Essar Steel under the bankruptcy process and had tried bidding for the company along with the New Metal Consortium in the first round, where their bid was then rejected by the Supreme Court for not paying up the dues of Essar Group companies. Now we're given to understand, in the light of various reports that have emerged, that the Jindals may try to attempt a fresh bid for Essar Steel. We reached out to Sajjan Jindal himself, who has clarified to CNBC TV 18 that at this point of time, JSW Group is not looking to make any fresh bid either independently or with Vedanta or any other partner to acquire Essar Steel. But, and this is very important, the clarification that they've made is this: in the event that the lenders and the courts accept Ruya's settlement offer for the company to withdraw it from insolvency under Section 12A by offering to pay 54,000 crore rupees to the creditors, in the event that proposal is accepted by the courts and the banks, the Jindals are ready to support the Ruyas by offering to take up as much as 26% stake in the company. So, a very important statement coming in from Sajjan Jindal himself that they will back the Ruyas in case their bid is admitted. But for now, no fresh bid will be made by the Jindals to acquire Essar Steel.
Ritu, thanks very much for that. More on the race for Essar Steel. We understand from our sources that ArcelorMittal is actually in talks with the Essar Group to buy its power and port assets. Nisha is here with more on this story. Nisha.
It's a very large transaction and there are many twists and turns. We do gather from sources with direct knowledge that there have been some talks between the Essar Group as well as ArcelorMittal for any transaction on the peripheral infrastructure of Essar Steel once NCLT gives the approval to ArcelorMittal to go ahead and buy. But there is still time for that, and Essar Group, on the other hand, is also trying every tactic possible for stalling this particular transaction to happen. They're still trying to protect Essar Steel. Having given that background, what's really happening is that there are two units which feed about 600 megawatts of captive power to Essar Steel, which is Mahan unit as well as Hazira plant. Now, these two have to be bought over, though they have a long-term PPA signed with these particular units, but ArcelorMittal will be more comfortable in buying them out. And for Ruyas also, it will give them some cash to pay off their debt, their lenders. On the other hand, Hazira Port totally dependent on Essar Steel, and Essar Steel totally dependent on that for their transportation again. So these are the two types of assets extremely important for Essar Steel for making that particular unit viable, and therefore ArcelorMittal as well as Essar Group are supposed to be in talks for a transaction. But these, remember, are just parallel transactions and deal talks which are going on. Valuations have not yet been firmed up. On the other hand, Ruyas continue to look at other legal options of protecting Essar Steel and keeping it with themselves. Just a quick snapshot of what ArcelorMittal may land up really spending in India for the 10 million ton unit of Essar Steel is first 8,000 or 7,500 crore rupees spent for Uttam Galva dues, 50,000 crore rupees offered for Essar Steel, and now they're talking for deals worth about 15,000 crore rupees.
Okay, completely out of time. We are wrapping up on Mark Story Talk Back. Thanks a lot for joining us.